Hello. Chapter 24 of Listen. 4 days. This is in the italicized, kind of like how her mom's voice is written, or how she is talking to herself in her mind. So this little part. Charlie is running along a twilight road between towering trees, chasing a figure she can barely make out ahead of her. The faster she runs, the smaller it gets, moving beyond her, dwindling into the distance. The world darkens around her. She slows then, her footsteps pounding in her ears like a drum changing rhythm. It is no use. She cannot catch up. The figure has disappeared now. She stops, doubles over, and tries to get her breath. When she straightens up again, she sees that she is at the edge of a lake, a silvery path stretching across it under the moon. She remembers this path. It will take her home. She steps out onto the water, moving one foot, then the other, walking on the glittering light. She is straining her eyes into the distance, trying to see the other shore, the lights of her house. When the black spot appears against the sheen of the moonlight, her bones turn to ice. Already the spot is growing, swallowing light, closing in. It's kind of like her memory when she was in the hospital. It is the 4th day, and Charlie is walking the sewer line trail. Each day since Coyote disappeared, she has wakened after a fitful night punctuated with a new version of her old nightmare, to begin another day of emptiness. Another day of walking and whistling and waiting. On the 2nd day, she put a notice in the message boxes asking anyone who sees Coyote to call her. No one has. She and Sarita have driven up and down the country road and through all the housing developments out beyond Eagle Lake, moving up one curving street and down another, asking everyone they encounter if they have seen a golden dog with a green collar. No one has seen him. Every morning she has written the day's number on her calendar, 64, 65, 66. She refuses to let herself think that the taming could be over. But today, when she put the red 67 in the square for Friday, August 15th, she felt the way she felt all those years ago when her father insisted that there were no elves or fairies in the woods. What she wants to believe more than anything in the world is slipping away, even as she holds on with every scrap of determination she can muster. It's a gray day. Dark clouds threatening rain, the air hot and heavy and still. She has walked from her house to Crazy Sherman's and back, and has started up towards Dixie Trace. Her waste pack is full of liver and biscuits just in case. She will walk every trail she knows before she goes back to eat whatever Sarita makes for lunch. She will go to every place she and Coyote have ever been together, every place he has ever returned to after a ramble to get his treats. She will whistle and call for him, and she will be careful not to let her imagination loose. On the 2nd day, she tried a different sort of imagining, keeping careful to control the images, picturing only what she wanted to be true. Coyote in the Eagle Lake woods, heading home, a bone he had stolen from a yard in one of the developments between his teeth. But she couldn't hold the image against the thought of the roads, the cars and trucks, and a new one, a pack of dogs defending their territory, surrounding him, barking, snarling, growling. Whatever guided her visions before, when she relaxed and let her mind play, now it was fear that took over, making the images, the sensations. She dares not trust herself to try again. Since then, she has done her best to keep her mind focused as completely as possible on the certainty that wherever he is, Coyote is a survivor, like Bo and like Tree. Now, as she moves along the trail, Charlie realizes that in the weeks she and Coyote have walked here, the natural world has changed without her thinking about it, almost without her noticing. Gingerly, she takes hold of a blackberry cane, its thorns pricking her fingers to move it out of the way. It snaps back, catches her on her jeans, piercing through to her leg. The brambles are still growing, narrowing the trail, but the berries are long gone. Goldenrod and Queen's Anne lace and thistles are blooming now, head high in some places. Even on a day like this one, threatening rain, the world seems drier, the greens less green. And here and there, a red leaf signals that autumn is on its way. Nothing stays the same, Charlie thinks. Everything goes away. Looking at the goldenrod, growing so thickly, so bright and tall, she finds that she can't remember what this trail looked like before it bloomed. Is this why her mother chose photography? Was she trying to catch it all before it went away? Her mother is not here to answer. Will never answer. Charlie stops as if she had run into a wall. What if Coyote doesn't come back? What if the images of the roads, the cars, what if it was real? And there's nothing left of him now but a body among the weeds, a reason for the vultures that circled overhead to tilt their wings and drop down to the pavement. She never thought in all these 67 days to take a picture of him. How could she, Charlie Morgan, daughter of Colleen Morgan, nature photographer, not once think to go to her mother's studio, dig through the boxes, find a camera, and take a picture? If he's gone, there will be nothing to show that Coyote ever lived. Nothing at all to show for day after day of the effort to tame him. Day after day of their growing connection. Ahead, Charlie sees the wild rose bush that marks the way into the pine grove. She pushes past it, makes her way through the young pines, and scrambles up the hill. The pine grove has changed only a little since the day she found it, she sees. The moss seems taller, the lichens thicker, and a dead branch with a pair of gray pine cones still attached lies across the place where the fairy rings grow. She's not comforted. However small in it is change. Charlie sinks to the ground, stretches her legs out in front of her, leans against a tree. She tries to settle herself, to breathe slowly, to focus her attention on a bit of moss, an ant, the thrum of cicadas, but she cannot seem to get her breath. Something that feels like a great balloon in the center of her is growing, pushing against her ribs, against her throat. If it gets any bigger, she thinks she'll explode, shattered into so many pieces she will never be able to put herself back together again. She tries to swallow around a pain like blackberry thorns, and a sound begins. She hears it before she understands it's coming from inside herself. A low moan. It grows louder, rises higher until it becomes a kind of scream, and she's crying. Tears flooding her eyes, pouring down her cheeks. She cannot make them stop. There is no way to wake up from this pain, no way to get away. The black spots from her nightmares have swallowed her. Sobbing, Charlie throws herself down on the moss. Memories come flooding in. The day her father turned from the telephone, his face gone gray and old, to say the words that made no sense. Your mother's plane went down, Charlie. Your mother is gone. Neighbors with casseroles, people crowding the house, the funeral at the church that she and her father have never gone back to again, taking down her mother's photographs, trying not to see them as she did. Mrs. Jensen coming at her, touching, patting, hugging, the very things Charlie did not want, could not stand. The very things, Amy acting so weird, afraid to mention her own mother until the day Charlie yelled at her to stop worrying about her, the day she told everybody at school that she was all right, that it was all over and she didn't hurt anymore, wouldn't cry anymore. Other memories come, then a flood that won't stop. The hospital. Amy and Travis, scraped and bruised, but on their feet, treated and released. Walking so easily into the room, one foot, then the other. Travis apologizing, sorry, sorry, sorry. The room full of balloons that she had to lie there and watch shrink and droop flowers that she had to watch die. Cards from the kids at school. Get well. As if she had the flu. As if she gets out of the hospital, she can come back to school and everything will be okay. Wheelchair, crutches, Tony, pain. Amy's mother on the phone talking about tennis, Becky Sue Linder and Lake George, Amy gone for the summer with never a word, and Coyote. A good thing she was doing, Dr. Fraser said. She understands now that it hasn't been only her saving Coyote, it has been, since that very first day, Coyote saving her. Coyote gone now, like everything else. Charlie doesn't know how long this sobbing lasts, but when it dwindles, stops, she lies still for a long time, unable to move. She's exhausted, limp as if the life had been wrung out of her and there's nothing left. Never in her life has she felt so completely alone. When at last she pushes herself up to a sitting position, her nose is running and there are pine needles stuck to her cheeks. She wipes her face with the bottom of her t-shirt, pulls her legs up and wraps her arms around them, resting her chin on her knees. Little by little, she becomes aware of the sounds around her. Thunder growls in the distance, and she sees that it's darker now than it was. It will rain soon, she thinks. She should go home, but she doesn't move. She is breathing and counting now, long, slow breaths that don't fill the emptiness inside. She closes her eyes, listens, and becomes aware of her heart, quiet and steady, a slow beat that blends into the zithering of cicadas and crickets, the shriek of a hawk high above the pines. She's not alone. Time seems to stop or stretch. She feels as if she has slipped out of the world of humans into a realm entirely separate, of other beings, trees and birds, mushrooms and insects and stones. Something moves nearby, and Charlie opens her eyes. Into the dim corridor between trees to her left steps a fox. She holds her breath. It has not seen her. It stands for a moment, utterly still, and then sits, black ears up, cinnamon coat fairly glowing in the shadows, and wraps its brush of a tail around its delicate white feet. She thinks it may be the most beautiful thing she has ever seen, bright and astonishingly clean, as if it is a plush toy newly made. Its tail is stunning, each hair shading from cinnamon to gold to brown to black. There is a rustle in the pine needles behind Charlie, and she turns her head toward the sound. When she turns back, the fox is gone. Like a ghost, she thinks. Like Coyote. Coyote. Come back. Come home. She sends these thoughts into the air around her, beaming the message out to wherever Coyote might be. Come home. And then, quite clearly, she knows that he is not a body among the weeds somewhere. There is no imagining. She's sure of it. She feels the steady pulse of his heart as surely as she feels her own. That is the end of the chapter.